Okay, good evening, students. Trying to get a few more comments here while we're still working on Unit 2 and hopefully help everybody out here as they're working through Unit 2 in advance. And also want to make the comment, too, that I know folks were drowning and put a lot of time into a couple of the assignments on Chapter 2 and 3. And some students I know were worried and thought it was graded hard, and so I want to make sure maybe I'm trying to put together some kind of maybe extra credit, so if people are really worried that they're stranded or suffering, that you won't be stressed out about that. I certainly don't want that. And maybe some comments here midstream in Unit 2 will help out and keep everybody afloat, because I know it's a lot of material. This is a really extensive course. And quite frankly, as an elder law attorney, it's intimidating because there's so much to know. So with that preface, then, let me say this, and I'm going to try to cover 4, 5, and 6 here in this one video, because I think this material is not quite as heavy and intensive as what I would consider chapters 2 and 3. So let me say this about the Social Security chapter. I mean, and what's important for me in my practice and what I think you as a paralegal should know. Number one, the point I think in chapter 4 is that Social Security benefits, obviously, that's the foundation for income for all of our clients. And, everybody, I think the book says 9 out of 10. It's my experience that almost every single client is receiving Social Security benefits in some form or fashion. So, having that background is important. My practice doesn't work in Social Security disability work. I don't think the majority of elder law practices do. I'm sure some do. But it's my experience that Social Security disability is sort of a niche practice unto its own. I know the book talks about disability. And excuse me, and that's important work, but I don't think it's at the core of most elder law practices. But understanding it is it's you got to know that. So the important piece here, I think, is that Social Security benefits and Social Security disability benefits for those folks who have shown an injury from work or something and are now receiving Social Security disability. Those are benefits that aren't diminished in any way by having too many assets or something like that. That's an entitlement benefit. So it's received, it's countable, and there's some tax provisions. Some of that can be income taxed, but that's it. It's called an entitlement benefit. One other comment about this here, in this chapter 4 is about SSI, very often confused by attorneys and paralegals and everyone. SSI is Supplemental Security Income. It is managed by the Social Security Administration, SSA, but SSI is a means-tested benefit in the sense that if you don't have much in the way of assets, you're eligible for it, but you need to be aged, blind, or disabled, and impoverished, and there's asset tests, and then you receive SSI. But that's managed through the Social Security Administration, and it's not Social Security in the sense what most people think about, which is old age and survivor disability income. But those two programs are important. They're you got to know it as an elder lawyer. Let me talk quickly about Chapter 5, and since I'm droning on a little bit, maybe I'll break Chapter 6 off into a different segment here. There's not a lot I really want to comment on in Chapter 5 other than, there's at least the chapter touches on dementia, and I'm sure I don't need to say this, but the core of every elder law practice is dealing with dementia-related illness. And even in my pretty short tenure practicing, the spike and huge rise in dementia-related illness is everywhere in the practice. And I think pretty quickly as an elder lawyer, you become very familiar with seeing how dementia is on a daily basis. And it's pretty interesting to see someone who really can't tell you much about what happened this morning be able to tell you at length and in detail a story that happened from 60 years ago. And you see it again and again and again in the practice, and it's really quite striking. And it's very difficult, a very, very difficult and painful disease, and it's just everywhere. So that's the important thing, I think, in Chapter 5, and as well there's a touch on HIPAA, and HIPAA is important to be familiar with HIPAA. If you're not, it's the Privacy Act that keeps health information private, and usually what it does as an elder lawyer is it prevents family members from getting access to health information that they need sometimes, and they're frustrated with it sometimes, but well-drafted healthcare powers of attorney can overcome that barrier. It's why, and I think the book touches on this as well, it's why a healthcare power of attorney is so important, because that is what allows the agent to talk to the physician or healthcare worker about an elder's health care information. And in my office, we actually draft separate HIPAA waivers that are on one page, and it saves staff and doctors and nurses from having to pour through a healthcare power of attorney. And people usually don't like to spend much time reading. So if you can give them a little one-page HIPAA waiver, that lets them off the hook, and they're able to talk freely then about the elder's diagnosis or prognosis or treatment protocol or whatever. So those are only, I think, 2 important points in Chapter 5. And I think I'll break 6 into a new chapter, since Medicare is obviously very important.